Good evening. This is India Radio. I am Naresh Margo and with me is R.S. Raghu with the evening news. The headlines. Election Commission announces schedule for assembly elections in West Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry. Polling to be held between 27th March and 29th April. Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry to go to polls in one phase on April 6. Three-phase polling for Assam, eight-phase elections for West Bengal. Model Code of Conduct comes into effect in poll-bound states. Prime Minister says farmers, processing units, MSMEs and startups will be real drivers of Atmanirbhar Bharat. GDP growth for third quarter of current fiscal shows that positive growth of economy is returning to pre-pandemic times. Preparations underway for next phase of administering COVID-19 vaccines to citizens over 60 years of age and those above 45 years of age with comorbidities. Centre extends existing COVID guidelines for surveillance, containment and caution till 31st March this year. India Toy Fair 2021 to be inaugurated by Prime Minister tomorrow through video conferencing. Finance Minister asserts that National Infrastructure Pipeline will play a critical role in revitalizing economy post-pandemic. And Sensex sheds 1,939 points amid global sell-off. Nifty down 568 points. As the nation fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of precaution to stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. And now the news. Assembly elections in West Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry will be held between 27th March to 29th April. The counting of votes in all the 4 states and 1 union territory will take place on 2nd May. Chief Election Commissioner Sunil Arora announced the poll schedule in New Delhi this evening. The assembly elections in Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry will be held in a single phase on 6th April.
Now I go to Kerala. All elections in 14 districts consisting of 140 assembly constituencies to be held in a single phase. 6th April, general election to Assembly of Tamil Nadu 2021. All elections to 38 districts consisting of 234 assembly constituencies shall be held in a single phase. Date of poll 6th April. Puducherry 2 districts, 30 assembly constituencies to be conducted in a single phase. Date of poll 6th April.
In West Bengal, polling will be held in 8 phases on 27th March, 1st, 6th, 10th, 17th, 22nd, 26th and 29th April.
West Bengal, 8 phases. West Bengal, first phase, date of poll 27 March. Second phase, date of poll 1st April. Third phase, date of poll 6th April. Phase 4, date of poll 10th April. Fifth phase, date of poll 17th April. Phase 6, date of poll 22nd April. Seventh phase, date of poll 26th April. Last phase, date of poll 29th April.
Assam will go to polls in 3 phases on 27th March and 1st and 6th April.
Assam General Assembly Elections 2021. Elections shall be held in 3 phases. First phase, date of poll 27th March. Assam second phase, date of poll 1st April. Final phase, date of poll 6th April. Date of counting 2nd May.
The Chief Election Commissioner said 18.68 crore electors will vote at 2.7 lakh polling stations for 824 seats in this election for 4 states and 1 union territory.
A total of 824 assembly constituencies shall be going for polls during these elections. 18.68 crore electors will cast vote at 2.7 lakh polling stations in these states and UT of Puducherry. More than 3 lakh service vote electors will be availing the facility of electronic transmitted postal ballot system, that is ETPBS.
Mr. Arora said the polling time has been increased by 1 hour. He said webcasting arrangement will be in place at polling stations in critical and vulnerable areas. The Chief Election Commissioner said adequate Central Armed Police Forces deployment will be ensured during elections and all critical vulnerable polling stations. He added that special observers have been appointed in the 4 states going to polls. Elaborating about the measures in view of the COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Arora said everyone on poll duty will be vaccinated before the elections. He said door-to-door campaigning will be restricted to 5 persons, including the candidate. The CEC said the Model Code of Conduct came into force with the announcement of the elections. On the occasion, the Commission also announced by-poll for Kanyakumari Lok Sabha constituency in Tamil Nadu and Malappuram Lok Sabha seat in Kerala, which will be held on 6th April.
Political parties have welcomed the announcement of assembly polls in 4 states and 1 UT. Talking to AIR News, BJP spokesperson Nalin Kohli said his party will go to the poll with its positive agenda and work done by it for the welfare of the people.
The Bharatiya Janata Party always looks at every election as an opportunity for us to keep before the people the report card of the Honorable Prime Minister's government in terms of delivering on its promises at the centre, looking at a transformative change for every segment of society, including farmers, the middle class, looking at transformative change for women, youth, everyone. And it is with a positive agenda of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. We have always approached every state election.
Congress spokesperson Pawan Khera said his party will raise the issue of failure of BJP rule on the issue of price rise, unemployment and others.
Issues of failure of governance on the part of the central government. There are several issues, the issues of price hike, issues of unemployment, issues of farmer distress. Congress party will go to the people with its own positive agenda and also highlight the failures of the central government.
Senior CPI leader Atul Anjan said these polls will be the challenge for the BJP to retain power in Assam, perform well in West Bengal and open accounts in southern states.
It's a constitutional obligation to hold the assembly election of these 4 states and 1 union territory, and the Election Commission has declared the date. Now the responsibility lies on the Election Commission that free, fair election must be held in these states.
In Assam, all the political parties have welcomed the poll dates. Talking to AIR correspondent, the spokespersons and leaders of the BJP, Congress, Assam Gana Parishad, AIUDF, Raijor Dal welcomed the announcement of the ECI that the polling process would come to an end before the Bohag Bihu in mid-April. Assam is going to polls in 3 phases beginning 27th of March. More from our Guwahati correspondent.
With the declaration of the schedule today, the poll process will be intensified. There are 126 assembly seats in the state. Due to the COVID situation, number of polling stations have been increased in the election. The office of the chief electoral officer in Assam has already started awareness drive to increase the polling percentage. Manas Pratim Sharma, AIR News, Guwahati.
In West Bengal, the elections will be held in 8 phases from 27th March 2021 to 29th of April 2021 for 294 assembly constituencies. Details from our Kolkata correspondent.
CEO West Bengal Ariz Aftab informed in a press conference held today in Kolkata that elections will be held in 1,19,16 polling stations. There are a total of 7,32,94,980 voters, including third gender. He further informed that all polling stations will be on the ground floor. It is to be noted that central forces have already been deployed in West Bengal. The forces will lay stress on area domination, especially in sensitive zones, assisted by the state police and senior officials of the district administration. Dr. Priyanka for All India Radio, Kolkata.
Our Puducherry correspondent reports that the term of Puducherry Legislative Assembly will come to an end on 8th June this year.
The term of the Puducherry Legislative Assembly will come to an end on 8th June 2021. Puducherry will go to polls on April 6th in a single phase along with the polling state of Tamil Nadu. The notification will be issued on March 12th and the filing of a nomination also starts on the same day. The last date for a nomination is 19th March and it will be scrutinized on 20th, and those who are not willing to contest can withdraw their nominations before 22nd. Polling will be held on April 6th and counting along with the results will be announced on May 2nd. Chandramohan, AIR News, Puducherry.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that farmers, processing units, MSMEs and startups will be the real drivers of an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Addressing a webinar on implementation of budget in the financial services sector, Mr. Modi said the government's vision regarding the financial sector is very clear. He said trust, transparency and faith are the cornerstones of the financial sector.
देश के फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर को लेकर सरकार का विजन बिल्कुल साफ है, कोई इफ्स एंड बट्स की जगह नहीं है। देश में कोई भी डिपॉजिटर हो या कोई भी इन्वेस्टर, दोनों ही ट्रस्ट और ट्रांसपेरेंसी अनुभव करें, ये हमारी सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता है। देश की वित्तीय व्यवस्था अगर किसी एक बात पर वो टिकी हुई है तो वो है विश्वास। विश्वास अपनी कमाई की सुरक्षा का, विश्वास निवेश के फलने फूलने का और विश्वास देश के विकास का।
Mr. Modi asserted that under the NDA government, the banking and non-banking sectors have undergone sea changes, making them much more transparent and reliable.
बैंकिंग और नॉन बैंकिंग सेक्टर के पुराने तौर तरीकों और पुरानी व्यवस्थाओं को स्वाभाविक से बहुत बड़ा बदलाव आ रहा है और बदलना हम लोगों के लिए भी अनिवार्य हो चुका है। 10-12 साल पहले एग्रेसिव लैंडिंग के नाम पर कैसे देश के बैंकिंग सेक्टर को, फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर को नुकसान पहुंचाया गया, ये आप अच्छी तरह जानते भी हैं, समझते भी हैं। नॉन ट्रांसपेरेंट क्रेडिट कल्चर से देश को बाहर निकालने के लिए एक के बाद एक कदम उठाए गए हैं। आज एनपीएस को कारपेट के नीचे दबाने के बजाय एक दिन का एनपीए भी रिपोर्ट करना जरूरी कर दिया है।
The Prime Minister also underscored the importance of continued and robust participation of public sector units in the banking and insurance sectors in order to ensure universal financial inclusion. Emphasizing on the key reforms introduced by the government in the financial sector, he said that the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code has instilled faith in the lenders. He said the leakage-free delivery system, merger of small banks, and provision for asset restructuring bodies and development financial institutions will ensure a robust, vibrant and transparent financial sector in the country. Mr. Modi said that the usage of technology has helped the country in achieving an unprecedented growth in financial inclusion. He said the country has accomplished the feat of rolling out Aadhaar cards for nearly 130 crore countrymen in addition to opening of Jan Dhan accounts for 41 crore beneficiaries. The Prime Minister said with the existing pace of growth, the fintech sector in the country is expected to reach the $6 trillion mark in the next 3 years. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and Minister of State for Finance Anurag Thakur also participated in the webinar. India's economy grew 0.4% in October to December period of the current fiscal. According to official data released today, the gross domestic product GDP in third quarter, that's Q3 of 2021, is estimated at 36.22 lakh crore rupees, showing a growth of 0.4% at constant prices of 2011-12 fiscal. The GDP growth for third quarter of current fiscal shows that positive growth of economy is returning to the pre-pandemic times. The GDP of the country witnessed growth after logging contraction in the last 2 quarters. In Q1, the GDP of COVID-19 hit economy logged a contraction of 23.9%, while in Q2, it shrank 7.5%. According to the National Statistical Office NSO data, GDP during 2020-21 is estimated at -8% as compared to 4% in 2019-20 at constant prices. According to the data, the per capita income in real terms at 2011-12 prices during 2020-21 is estimated to attain a level of 85,929 rupees with a negative growth of 9.1% as it was 94,566 rupees in the year 2019-20. The government in its release said the measures taken by the government to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic have had an impact on the economic activities as well as on the data collection mechanisms.
You are listening to the evening news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Election Commission announces schedule for assembly elections in West Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry. Polling to be held between 27th March to 29th April. Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry to go to polls in one phase on April 6th. 3-phase polling for Assam, 8-phase elections for West Bengal. Model Code of Conduct comes into effect in poll-bound states. Prime Minister says farmers, processing units, MSMEs and startups will be real drivers of Atmanirbhar Bharat. GDP growth for third quarter of current fiscal shows that positive growth of economy is returning to pre-pandemic times. Preparations underway for next phase of administering COVID-19 vaccines to citizens over 60 years of age and those above 45 years of age with comorbidities. Centre extends existing COVID guidelines for surveillance, containment and caution till 31st of March this year. India Toy Fair 2021 to be inaugurated by Prime Minister tomorrow through video conferencing. Finance Minister asserts that National Infrastructure Pipeline will play a critical role in revitalizing economy post-pandemic. Sensex sheds 1,939 points amid global sell-off. Nifty down 568 points. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
चलो मिलकर एक शुरुआत करें, चलो एक फैसला आज करें, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे, चलो एक इरादा करते हैं, चलो खुद से वादा करते हैं, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे.
Preparations are underway for the next session of COVID-19 vaccinations for citizens over 60 years of age and those above 45 years of age with comorbidities. In view of this, the ongoing sessions of vaccination will not take place on Saturday and Sunday in the wake of IT system transition from CoWIN 1.0 to CoWIN 2.0. Participating in a program on All India Radio, Director AIIMS Dr. Randeep Guleria explained the process of vaccination at government and private centers.
60 साल की उम्र ज्यादा हो या 45 साल से की उम्र ज्यादा हो और जिसको कोमॉर्बिडिटीज हो, वो कोविन ऐप के थ्रू भी अपने आप को रजिस्टर कर सकते हैं या देख सकते हैं कि उनका नाम ऑलरेडी उस ऐप में रजिस्टर्ड है या नहीं है. और रजिस्ट्रेशन होने के लिए वो फोटो आइडेंटिटी कार्ड है, उसके साथ अपने आप को रजिस्टर कर सकते हैं. लेकिन कई लोग ऐसे हैं जिनके पास स्मार्टफोन नहीं हो, तो वो जो वैक्सीनेशन साइट्स पे हैं वहां पे जाके अपने आप को वॉक इन करके कागज है वो साथ ले जाएं, फोटो आई कार्ड साथ ले जाएं, वहां पर भी उनको रजिस्टर किया जाएगा. उनका पूरा डेटा जो है वो कोविन ऐप में अपलोड किया जाएगा. जो बुजुर्ग लोग हैं जो गांव में रहते हैं जिनके मुश्किल होगी आने के लिए, उसमें वॉलंटियर्स और वहां गांव में जो लोग हैं वो भी हेल्प करेंगे उनकी रजिस्ट्रेशन के लिए और उनको वैक्सीन साइट पे लाने के लिए. इसका भी इंतजाम किया जा रहा है.
Union Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan today chaired a high-level meeting with health secretaries of states and union territories on the vaccination of age-appropriate groups through a video conference. The nationwide COVID-19 vaccination drive was launched on 16th January this year. The government will start administering the COVID-19 vaccine to people above 60 years of age and those within the age bracket of 45 to 59 years with specified comorbidities from the 1st of next month. The states and UTs were explained the basic features of version 2.0 of the digital platform CoWIN, which is a population-scale software with capacity of processing several thousands of entries. The new phase of vaccination of age-appropriate groups will expand the COVID vaccination in the country manifold. All beneficiaries must be advised to carry any one of the photo ID documents including Aadhaar card, electoral photo identity card, certificate of comorbidity for citizens in age group of 45 years to 59 years signed by a registered medical practitioner. The beneficiaries will be able to self-register in advance by downloading the CoWIN 2.0 portal and through other IT applications such as Arogya Setu. This will show the government and private hospitals serving as COVID vaccination centers with the date and time of the available schedules. The beneficiary would be able to choose the COVID vaccination centers of his choice and book an appointment for vaccination. Vaccination will be free of charge at the government vaccination centers. The beneficiary will have to show a photo ID document for proof of age and certificate of comorbidity. Those taking the COVID vaccine at any designated and empaneled private health facility will have to pay a prefixed charge. Over 1.37 crore COVID-19 vaccinations were done so far in the country. Briefing media in New Delhi today, Joint Secretary in Health Ministry Dr. Mandeep Bhandari said over 88,41,000 healthcare workers and 49,15,000 frontline workers have been administered the vaccines till now. He said healthcare workers' first dose coverage of more than 80% was done in 7 states, and UTs and frontline workers' first dose coverage of more than 60% was done in 7 states and UTs. Dr. Bhandari said 2,84,000 vaccines were given today. Meanwhile, the country's COVID-19 recovery rate stands at 97.17% with recovery of more than 12,179 patients within 24 hours.
The Ministry of Home Affairs extended the existing COVID guidelines for surveillance, containment and caution till the 31st of March this year. The ministry said while there has been a substantial decline in the active and new COVID-19 cases, there is need to maintain surveillance, containment and caution so as to fully overcome the pandemic. The states and union territories have been advised to speed up the vaccination of the target population to break the chain of transmission. They've also been asked that containment zones continue to be demarcated carefully, prescribed containment measures strictly followed within these zones, and COVID-appropriate behavior promoted and strictly enforced. The standard operating procedures prescribed in respect of various permitted activities will be followed scrupulously. The Minister has directed them to strictly enforce the focused approach on surveillance, containment, and strict observance of the guidelines and SOPs. China has recognized India's efforts in supplying COVID-19 vaccines to the world, especially poorer nations. In response to a question at a press briefing in Beijing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said that it welcomes India's shipping more doses of free COVID-19 vaccines around the world, especially to poorer countries, compared with Chinese vaccine supplies. He added China hopes to see more countries taking actions to provide vaccines to the world, especially the developing countries, to help with the global response. True to its earned fame of world's pharmacy, India focused on its production capacity to vaccinate its own billion-plus population, as well as supplying to the world, especially poorer nations, through WHO-led COVAX. India and China should jointly consolidate the existing outcomes, maintain the momentum of consultation, improve the border control mechanism, advance the border negotiation process, continue to accumulate and enhance mutual trust, further ease the situation and achieve peace and tranquility in the border area, Chinese Foreign Ministry Wang Yi said during his telephonic conversation with India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. Both the leaders spoke over phone on Thursday to discuss the implementation of the Moscow Agreement and to review the status of the disengagement process in the eastern Ladakh area near the Line of Actual Control, LAC. A Chinese Foreign Ministry statement over this telephonic conversation said today that the recent disengagement of frontline Chinese and Indian forces in the Pangong Lake area has clearly eased the situation on the ground. The statement also said that both sides have agreed to establish a hotline for better communication and to exchange opinions in a timely manner. Here is more from our Beijing correspondent.
The phone call, which lasted 75 minutes, was the first formal contact between both the foreign ministers since they met on the margins of SCO meeting in Moscow on September 10th last year. And it came days after India and China completed first phase of troops disengagement around Pangong Lake along with armored vehicles and artillery. After this, both the sides completed 10th round of Corps commander level talks on 20th February, but no breakthrough has yet been announced on the disengagement in other areas as agreed in the Moscow Agreement. However, it is important that both the sides have given importance to communication and agreed to establish a hotline for better communication. It is also worth noting that both the sides have recognized that recent disengagement of two militaries in the Pangong Lake area is an important result of the earnest implementation of the Moscow Consensus of the two foreign ministers. India hopes to strengthen dialogue and consultation with China to achieve complete disengagement in other regions as soon as possible. Anshuman Mishra, AIR News, Beijing.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the India Toy Fair 2020-21 tomorrow through video conferencing. Toys play a significant part in the development of a child's mind and also help improve psychomotor and cognitive skills in children. The fair aims to provide an impetus to the underlying themes of Atmanirbhar Bharat and Vocal for Local campaigns launched by the government to promote indigenous industries. It also aims to leverage the potential of toys in making learning joyful across all ages in education. In his Mann Ki Baat program in August last year, the Prime Minister had said that toys not only augment activity but also give flight to aspirations. Noting the importance of toys in the holistic development of a child, the Prime Minister had earlier also emphasized boosting toy manufacturing in India.
टॉय इंडस्ट्री बहुत व्यापक है. गृह उद्योग हो, छोटे और लघु उद्योग हो, एमएसएमई हो, इसके साथ साथ बड़े उद्योग और निजी उद्यमी भी इसके दायरे में आते हैं. इसे आगे बढ़ाने के लिए देश को मिलकर मेहनत करनी होगी. मैं अपने स्टार्टअप मित्रों को, हमारे नए उद्यमियों से कहता हूं, टीम अप फॉर टॉयज. आइए मिलकर खिलौने बनाएं. अब सभी के लिए लोकल खिलौनों के लिए वोकल होने का समय है. आइए हम अपने युवाओं के लिए कुछ नए प्रकार के अच्छी क्वालिटी वाले खिलौने बनाते हैं. खिलौना वो हो जिसकी मौजूदगी में बचपन खिले भी, खिलाए भी. हम ऐसे खिलौने बनाएं जो पर्यावरण के भी अनुकूल हो.
Our correspondent reports that the toy fair is being organized in line with this vision of the Prime Minister. Through this platform, the government and the industry will come together to discuss how India can be made the next global hub for manufacturing and sourcing of toys by way of attracting investments in the sector and promoting exports.
The 4-day event aims to bring together all stakeholders, including buyers, sellers, students, teachers and designers on a virtual platform to create sustainable linkages and encourage dialogue for the overall development of the industry. Over 1,000 exhibitors from across 30 states and union territories will display their products in an e-commerce enabled virtual exhibition. It will showcase traditional Indian toys as well as modern toys including electronic toys, plush toys, puzzles and games. The fair will also host numerous webinars and panel discussions with eminent Indian and international speakers with proven capabilities in toy design and manufacturing. For children, it is an opportunity to participate in a plethora of activities including craft demonstrations on traditional toy making and virtual visits to toy museums and factories. With Dipendra Kumar, Anupam Mishra, AR News, Delhi.
ग्लोबल टॉय इंडस्ट्री 7 लाख करोड़ रुपए से भी अधिक की है. टीम अप फॉर टॉयज.
The Government of India is organizing India's first ever, the India Toy Fair. Indian local toy manufacturers march forward for Atmanirbhar Bharat. It's time to get vocal for your remarkable local. From 27th February to 2nd March, must come forward to get registered online at www.theindiatoyfair.in.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today highlighted that the National Infrastructure Pipeline NIP will play a critical role in revitalizing economy post-pandemic. She said NIP is not only just central government budgetary expenditure on infrastructure but also includes infra spending by states and private sector. Chairing a virtual meeting with CEO Niti Aayog and secretaries of 22 infrastructure ministries and departments, she discussed post-budget action points for infrastructure roadmap ahead, including NIP implementation. Benchmark domestic stocks today tumbled 3.8% in sync with the plunge in the global equity markets. A report from the Business World.
The BSE Sensex closed 1,939 points or 3.8% down at 49,100. The NSE Nifty also fell by 568 points or 3.76% to finish at 14,529. The broader market at the BSE also declined but outperformed the Sensex. The BSE Mid-Cap Index ended 1.44% down while the BSE Small Cap Index slipped by 0.74%. In the Sensex pack, shares of all 30 companies fell. Sectoral indices at the BSE also fell as all 19 sectors declined. In the global equity market, Asian stocks plunged the most in 9 months. Japan's Nikkei 225 plunged 4%, Hong Kong's Hang Seng tumbled 3.6% and South Korea's Kospi declined 2.8%. China's Shanghai Composite Index fell 2.1% and Singapore's Straits Times slipped by 0.8%. European.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Election Commission announces schedule for assembly elections in West Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry. Polling to be held between 27th March and 29th April. Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry to go to polls in one phase on April 6th, 3-phase polling for Assam, 8-phase for West Bengal. Model Code of Conduct comes into effect in poll-bound states. Prime Minister says farmers, processing units, MSMEs and startups will be real drivers of Atmanirbhar Bharat. GDP growth for third quarter of current fiscal shows that positive growth of economy is returning to pre-pandemic times, and India Toy Fair 2021 to be inaugurated by Prime Minister tomorrow through video conferencing. With that, we end the evening news. Good night.